All right, so get ready because we're going to dive into something that, might be a little more common than you think, and that is workplace romance. Yeah, we're going to unpack this Forbes Advisor article that surveyed like 2,000 American employees. And wow, some of the findings were pretty surprising. So, I think it's all just stolen glances and awkward elevator rides.
Think again.
Think again, right? Yeah.
It's actually fascinating, how work has become like this unexpected breeding ground for romance.
Mm.
I mean, statistically, you're more likely to marry someone that you met at work than like online.
See, that's what got me. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, really? That's a huge stat, like that really challenges this whole like find love online narrative that's so prevalent these days. But why is the office such a hot spot for romance? I mean, is it just proximity or is there something a little deeper going on?
Well, the Forbes survey points to a few key factors, and it's not just about convenience, although that plays a role for sure. It's more about the comfortability of already knowing someone well, the lack of time to meet people outside of work, and the shared experience of working in the same environment.
That shared experience piece really resonates with me because think about it, you're spending 40 plus hours a week with these people,
No.
right? You're often dealing with like stressful situations, tight deadlines, maybe even a few office politics, thrown in for good measure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that kind of environment, finding someone who understands what you're going through, who can relate to your daily grind, that can be incredibly powerful. It really taps into that fundamental human need for connection and belonging, especially when you're facing challenges together.
So it's not just about clocking in and clocking out. It's about finding a sense of camaraderie, someone who gets you, who speaks your language, and maybe even makes those long work days a little more bearable.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But here's where things get even more interesting. The survey found that over 60% of adults have experienced a workplace romance.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a significant number, and it raises questions about, how these relationships impact our careers and even our sense of self.
Okay, so we've established that office romances are more common than we might have thought, and there are some understandable reasons why they happen, but let's be honest, it's not always smooth sailing, right? The survey found that 57% of respondents said workplace romance impacted their work performance in some way. So what are some of the potential downsides here?
Well, for starters, it can really blur the lines between our professional and personal lives, and, it becomes a question of perception. How do colleagues view the relationship? Is there a sense of favoritism? Especially if one person is in a more senior position.
And even if there's no actual favoritism, the perception of it can really create tension and resentment among other colleagues. So it's like walking a tightrope, trying to maintain professionalism while also navigating the complexities of a romantic relationship.
Absolutely. And it's not just about external perceptions. The survey also found that over 50% of respondents felt their sense of individuality was impacted by dating a colleague.
It's really interesting. Why do you think that is? I mean, wouldn't sharing that work experience bring you closer together?
It can, but it can also lead to a merging of identities, especially when you're spending so much time together, both at work and outside of it. You become the couple at work,
Yeah.
and that label can overshadow who you are as individuals.
It's like you lose that sense of separateness, those unique qualities that make you, well, you. And that can be tricky to navigate, especially in the already demanding environment of the workplace. But let's face it, the elephant in the room, the thing everyone wonders about when it comes to office romance is the breakup.
Ah, yes. The dreaded breakup, and the survey confirms that this fear is amplified in workplace romances. The fear of breaking up and having to continue working together was 17% higher in workplace romances compared to relationships where partners don't work together.
That makes total sense. I can only imagine the awkwardness and tension of bumping into your ex at the coffee machine every morning.
It can be incredibly challenging. You're constantly reminded of your ex. You might have to collaborate on projects. You might even overhear gossip or see them flirting with someone new. It's like a never-ending cycle of discomfort.
And the survey revealed something pretty surprising about how people are dealing with this fear. Nearly 30% of those surveyed actually created a breakup plan with their colleague partner.
That's right. It's like a prenup for office romance.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating is what this says about our evolving workplace culture. We're starting to recognize that romantic relationships are happening at work, and we're trying to navigate the complexities in a more proactive and pragmatic way. It's like we're acknowledging the potential pitfalls and trying to plan for them.
It's almost like having an exit strategy before you even get started, but what are the implications for companies here? Do they have a responsibility to address these kinds of breakup plans or even discourage workplace romances altogether?
That's a great question, and one that many companies are grappling with. There are certainly legal considerations around potential harassment claims or accusations of favoritism, but it's a delicate balance because employers also want to respect their employees' personal lives and autonomy.
Sounds like a minefield for HR departments.
Mm.
And speaking of tricky situations, we can't ignore the cheating factor. The Forbes survey didn't shy away from this, and the results were eye-opening.
Indeed, the survey found that 40% of people who had a workplace romance admitted to cheating on a partner with a colleague.
Wow, that's a significant number. It definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole discussion.
It does. And while we aren't advocating for or against any particular behavior, it's something to be aware of. Not all workplace romances involve infidelity. Of course, in fact, the survey also found that 43% of respondents ended up marrying a colleague. Clearly, some of these relationships are genuine and lead to long-term commitments.
That's a good point. It's important to acknowledge that for many people, the workplace is where they meet their future spouse. But I think it's safe to say that the cheating factor is something employers and employees alike need to be aware of, if for no other reason than to ensure they are making choices aligned with their own values and ethics.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that we often focus on the potential downsides of workplace romance, but I think it's important to acknowledge that there's also, a human side to this, right? People spend a significant portion of their lives at work, and it's natural for connections to form sometimes romantic ones.
You're absolutely right. And the Forbes survey actually delves into some of the lighter aspects of workplace attraction, like flirting and those
Yeah.
initial sparks of romantic interest.
Right. They found that 50% of respondents admitted to flirting with colleagues, so clearly office flirting is a real thing.
Hmm.
I mean, I've definitely witnessed some playful banter and, subtle gestures in my own workplaces over the years.
It's that unspoken language of attraction, those subtle cues that signal interest beyond just friendship. But here's the interesting part. While 50% admitted to flirting, only 46% admitted to actually having romantic feelings for a coworker.
So there's this gap between like flirtation and genuine feelings. What do you think that says about the dynamics of workplace attraction?
I think it suggests a level of awareness and caution. People might flirt and enjoy the playful banter and even feel a spark of attraction, but they're also mindful of the potential consequences of acting on those feelings in a professional setting.
Right, because even if you're not worried about jeopardizing your career, there's still the potential for awkwardness and drama if things don't work out. And let's not forget the gossip mill.
Oh, the gossip. The survey found that 58% of people had heard gossip about workplace romances.
I mean, come on, it's human nature. We're social creatures, we love a good story, and there's something undeniably intriguing about an office romance. It's like a real-life soap opera unfolding right before our eyes.
It's that element of mystery and intrigue, the unspoken dynamics and potential drama that makes it so captivating. But, as we discussed earlier, there's a dark upside to this. Gossip can spread misinformation, damage reputations, and create a toxic work environment.
Exactly what starts as harmless chatter can quickly escalate into, rumors and speculation, and that can have serious consequences for the individuals involved, especially if it affects their professional standing or creates a hostile work environment.
And it's important to remember that gossip often focuses on the superficial aspects of a relationship, the who, the what, and the when, without any consideration for the underlying emotions, complexities, or potential consequences.
It's like reducing people's lives to a series of sound bites and headlines without any real understanding of the nuances or the human impact.
Right, and that's why it's crucial to be mindful of what we say and how we participate in office gossip. It's about treating our colleagues with respect, even when we're curious about their personal lives, and remembering that words have power, especially in a professional setting.
It's interesting how this conversation has highlighted that workplace romance really reflects a lot of the broader societal issues we face today, balancing individual freedom with social responsibility, navigating complex relationships, and dealing with the ever-present influence of gossip and social media.
That's a great observation. The workplace is like a microcosm of society where all these different dynamics play out in a concentrated environment. And as with any social setting, there are rules, both written and unwritten, that govern how we navigate these complexities.
So as we wrap up this part of our discussion, what are some key takeaways for our listeners who are navigating the world of workplace attraction relationships and those inevitable whispers of office gossip?
Well, I think awareness is key. Be aware of your company's policies on workplace relationships. Be mindful of the power dynamics at play. And be respectful of your colleagues' boundaries, both personal and professional.
And equally important, be honest with yourself about your intentions and the potential consequences of your actions. Workplace romance can be a wonderful thing, but it's crucial to approach it with a sense of responsibility, respect, and a healthy dose of self awareness.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how much there is to think about. When it comes to workplace romance, it's not just about, hearts and flowers. It's about navigating like this complex web of relationships and perceptions and professional boundaries.
Absolutely. And as we've discussed, it's about striking a balance, between individual freedom and collective responsibility. Companies can't just, ignore the reality of workplace romance, but they also have a responsibility to create a work environment that is, respectful, professional, and fair for everyone.
Right. It's not about trying to, like control people's personal lives, but rather about setting those clear expectations, fostering open communication and ensuring that, everyone feels safe and respected regardless of their relationship status. Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway for listeners. Whether you're currently navigating, a workplace romance or considering dipping your toes into the office dating pool or simply observing, the dynamics around you, it's crucial to be aware of the potential pitfalls and to approach these situations with a sense of maturity and responsibility.
Yeah, that's really good advice. But I want to kind of bring up a point that you made earlier about the changing nature of work, with more and more companies embracing like remote or hybrid work models. I can't help but wonder how this will impact the landscape of workplace romance.
That's a great question, and it's one that a lot of experts are pondering right now. Will virtual office romances become the next frontier? Will we see like a rise in Slack-based flirting and Zoom-fueled love affairs?
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it? I mean, on the one hand, remote work could potentially decrease the opportunities for those spontaneous, in-person connections that often spark workplace romance.
Right? Those chance encounters at the coffee machine or those late-night brainstorming sessions that, turn into something more. Those might become less frequent in a virtual setting.
But on the other hand, technology also provides all these new avenues for connection and communication, right? I mean, think about all those like virtual team building activities, online happy hours, collaborative projects, that could create those unexpected opportunities for sparks to fly even across, geographical boundaries.
That's true. And perhaps we'll see like the emergence of new etiquette and norms around, virtual flirting and dating in the workplace. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves as remote work becomes, increasingly integrated into our professional lives.
It's definitely a topic that we'll have to revisit in a future deep dive. But as we wrap up our exploration of workplace romance today, what final thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with?
I think the key message is that workplace romance in all its forms is a reflection of our human need for connection and belonging. It's about, navigating the complexities of relationships, respecting boundaries, and creating a work environment where everyone feels safe, valued, and respected. And as our ways of working continue to evolve, so too will the dynamics of workplace romance.
Well said. So, to our listeners, the next time you hear those whispers about an office romance, whether it's a blossoming love story or a, messy breakup, remember there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
Think about the motivations, the complexities, the potential consequences, and most importantly, remember that behind every office romance, there are real people with real feelings navigating the, challenges and joys of finding connection in the modern workplace.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of workplace romance. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those water cooler chats, whether virtual or in person, respectful and engaging.